Are we ready, everybody? Hello, my name is Ben Heath, and I'm one of the owners of Deerbox UK. I run this business with Mike Robinson. We're both passionate conservationists, and today I'm here with one of Mike's head chefs, John Coates, from the Woodmans in Stratford-upon-Avon. What we're going to do for you today is there's a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about whole fallow deer and other venison species as well, utilising the whole carcass. John's going to talk about how he prepares and utilises the whole carcass. I'm also then going to talk about the situation currently in the UK with the wild deer population and why it's important for not only the restaurants but for the public to embrace this amazing product and utilise it more, because it's not being utilised as much as it could be, and the environmental benefits that would be gotten from utilising this meat. And then I'm also going to talk about the Country Food Trust as well, which is a fantastic organisation which is helping child poverty and feeding a lot of people, utilising mainly pheasants and also a lot of venison. So what we're going to start with is John's going to start breaking down this fallow deer, and I'm going to start asking questions about how he's breaking it down. I'm going to start with breaking down the haunch. John, do you want to just talk to us about the haunch and what dishes you like to cook?
Yeah, so, you know, what we sell most of at the restaurant, go for about 6 to 8 haunches or legs a week. I'll seam them out into certain muscle groups. And out of an animal this size, you'll get 12 to 40 good, nice 160, 170 gram portions. And you know, for us, it's cost effective. And okay, the grain isn't as fine as it is on the loin, but for me, it's got good eating quality. And people, you know, we cook it up, we label it as haunch on the menu, but people are surprised how good it is. You know what I mean? So how I start with my deer, I don't like to work when it's too warm. So literally, I break it straight into 3. I go boom. I count 7 bones up and take the long saddle and put the shoulder and put them back in the fridge.
It is, as a business that supplies venison to restaurants, we get a lot of demand for loins and long saddles, and it's nice to see that you're utilising the haunches, because we eat a lot of venison at home as well, and our actual preference is the parve steaks. I prefer the flavour. You're right, it is a bit grainier, but actually to cook with is fantastic.
It is, you know. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just I count up 7 bones, classical 7 bones up from where they start, and that gives me the short saddle and the best end all together, the long saddle. And like I said, I just like to keep the venison as cold as possible. That's not venison, it's butchery in general, really.
And what do you typically do with your saddles, John? Do you keep them on the bone? Do you?
Sometimes we go T-bones or Barnsley chops out of them. This weekend I've got a function who requested Wellingtons, so make a venison Wellington, you know. Make a chicken mousse, make a duck sail, wrap it in pancakes, wrap it in puff pastry. A bit of a labour of love, but you know what I mean, people appreciate it and it's nice. Got a table for me. So yeah, I've broken it into 3, got my 2 haunches. Got my long saddle, you've got your underfillets in there. And if I went in there, which I'm not going to now, you'd have a short saddle and then you'd have 2 racks or the best end.
Yeah.
And then up here, we've obviously got the shoulders and the neck end.
And what do you typically use the shoulders for, John, and the neck?
The shoulders, you know, come winter, you can get a real nice dice out of some of it, you make a lovely venison bourguignon. So any sort of stews, braisers. We mince a lot, we go through a lot of Scottish eggs at the restaurant. You know, you can't go pure venison, you go half pork, half venison, just due to there's not enough fat content. But those Scotch eggs, we make rissoles out of it. I just made a mix last week and sent to the butcher. I made nice sausages for the new venison dish we're making, a little venison sausage which goes on the side of the dish. So we're going to serve a piece of a nice grilled piece of parve, and on the side a bit of dirty mash with sausage in it.
Fantastic, yeah.
You go.
You want me to move it?
I'll go there board, mate. For a week.
Yeah, at Deerbox we sell a lot of venison through a box scheme direct to the public, and we've done a burger mix and we've also done a sausage mix, and we found that just by adding a little bit of beef fat to the venison, you get a lovely rendering of the meat, and it really does add a fantastic flavour. We actually, in fact, use about 85% venison, and just the remainder is beef. Now, John here at the moment is just seaming out the haunch. Talk to me, John, about when you're seaming the haunch out, you like to remove all the independent muscles, don't you?
Yeah, so I do one today, but you'll get seven pieces really. I'll get 7 pieces of meat out of a haunch, and some of them are the individual portions, and some of them you cut into 2 or 3 pieces. You know what I mean? Depending on the size of the deer. But that's one leg off there.
Fantastic. Right, so while you're seaming, I'm just going to talk about the wild deer population.
Yeah.
So in the UK, we have 6 native species of deer. They're all very different, and they're very much different in size, and they range from the small muntjac and Chinese water deer, which weigh anything, once they're skinned, from 6 kilos up to 10 kilos, right up to the red deer species, which are, a big stag can weigh in excess of 100 kilograms. What we have here today is we have a 1-year-old male fallow, and what we call it is a pricket. The carcass weight on this was about 33 kilos, and we will yield around about 18 kilos of pure meat off this animal. Okay. They all taste differently as well. For me personally, my favourite is fallow deer. Other chefs will tell you that their favourite is sika. John, do you have a favourite?
I don't know, I'm pretty partial to the fallow deer. We go through so many of them. I like a muntjac,
Yeah.
Like a small muntjac.
Yeah, and I mean, from a strength and a flavour point of view, I would say that fallow deer is probably the least gamey.
That's the thing in the restaurant. People come and they go, "Ooh, I don't know about deer. I've had red deer before. I've had deer before. It's been very gamey, very irony, And they come in and they have fallow deer, and it sort of really changed their perception of it. Like, it wasn't what they were expecting at all.
I think also one of the other things as well is typically a lot of red deer are harvested in October and late September when they're rutting, and essentially the males are full of adrenaline, and that adrenaline actually does taint the meat. We actually stop shooting fallow deer from literally about the 10th of October because we have noticed that the males will start to generate a small amount of taint in the meat. And if we're looking for food of the best quality, we don't really want to be taking an animal at that point. So what we tend to do is as the season opens in August, we'll start culling quite intensively on the males. We'll then back off in October, and then we'll wait for the doe season to start at the 1st of November. And then we will start reculling male deer again from January onwards. So we're giving the males time to get some condition back. And the reason we're doing that is purely to actually, rather than looking at the animal from a perspective of just having to cull it, we're also looking how we can best utilise it and get the best from the animal as well. And the thing with red deer as well is that a lot of red deer, as I said, are culled in that period. And so ultimately, that's all sold into the food chain. And that hasn't done venison any favours when it comes to promoting it as a lean, mild, non-intense tasting meat. But going back to talking about the different flavours, Chinese water deer naturally is a bit more fatty. I would almost say it's a little bit more like lamb. I mean, it doesn't taste like lamb, but the meat has a similar consistency to that. Muntjac, as John said, I think is fantastic meat. It's reasonably strong, but at the same time, it's not gamey.
It's also all year round, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all year round, exactly. Very versatile.
That's why I use a lot of, if you can find them, from the May to August period.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is, at that time of year, is the cover gets up so much, it's actually difficult to find them. Roe deer is a little bit stronger, but again, I mean, my kids particularly like roe deer for some reason. I think it's the texture, because again, roe is that little bit finer than fallow. It's a much finer texture. And then sika has, I would say, is very similar to fallow, but because it has more intramuscular fat, again, it has another flavour, and as I said, it's very, very much favoured among chefs. So here, John is starting to break out the individual muscles. We've got the top rump here, then we've got the salmon. We're going to go on to the silver side in a second. And it doesn't take too long, John, either, does it really, to see
I
the
reckon,
deer?
if 15 minutes really, at a decent pace.
So, going back to the issue currently in the UK, we've essentially had a situation in the European market not taking as much export from this country, and then come March last year, we had obviously the closure of all the restaurants, and that was a key point in the culling season for the deer population. And so essentially, a good probably 20% of does that should have been culled weren't culled. Coming through, that means that they've all then given birth, had offspring, and they then come into last season, into last November, at that point when again all the restaurants went back into closure. And it really didn't open again until end of March. And so it is anticipated, there are no real firm numbers, that there are as much as 50% that weren't culled. Therefore, that actually means that there could be as much as over the 2 years, more than a 50% increase. And basically, it is thought that deer numbers are the highest they've ever been since Roman times, that there are in excess of 2 million deer, but possibly now 3 million. We don't know, do we, Lee? It's just... and therefore, rather than just culling them for the sake of culling them, we've actually got to find a market for them. And going back to what John and I have just been talking about, a lot of the public need to be educated. They need to understand how good this meat is, how lean it is, how healthy it is, how sustainable it is. And one of the real key ways of getting that message out to the public is through the restaurants. Yeah, because if they go to a restaurant, if they try venison, if they enjoy venison, they're also likely then to try it and cook it at home as well. And you've got this amazing resource here, and with the cost of lamb and beef going up as well, venison is actually becoming a very, very good value protein. And we like to think it actually tastes better. Do you reckon it tastes better than beef, John, or am I causing controversy?
I think you never, we have venison and beef on the menu at the same time, and surprisingly we sell more venison than we realise, but it's up there, you know what I mean? I just think it's that real, people look upon it, don't they, and get, people look upon it and think, deer, Bambi and whatnot. I think that's the misconception.
Unfortunately, Walt Disney has got a lot to answer for, but at the same time, we can just do what we can. So here we are. You're seeing me out all the different notes. So you've got the half round there.
Seven pieces.
So we've got the top rump, we've got the salmon, we've got the knuckle, the half round, we've got the chump there, and then we've got the silver side. And you can use all of that for parveys.
So I use all that, yeah.
And do you find there's any noticeable difference in texture or flavour?
No, I wouldn't say flavour, all from the same animal, it's all from the same, you know what I mean? When you're cooking, sometimes you think it's cooked, it's not. You feel some muscles feel softer than others, that's all really, you know what I mean? But once you've cooked so many, you cook so many, you know.
Yeah, indeed. So, let's see if we can have a show of hands. Who here is utilising venison at the moment? Excellent, fantastic. I'm going to ask another question now, and I'll raise a hand kind of thing. Do you get your venison from a approved game handling establishment? Do you shoot it yourselves? Do you buy it from the back door? Sorry? Okay, cool. Right, so at the moment there are quite a few changes that are being discussed, but nothing's been set in stone. It's quite confusing for people to actually understand where they can buy game meat from, because ultimately you can ring up your often a meat wholesaler and they can get it for you. You can ring up a game dealer and they can get it for you, and then you can also buy game meat very legally from just a local established food business. And again, the laws surrounding it are that if you have shot it yourself, then you can sell it to a local restaurant or an establishment, providing you are a trained hunter and have all of your certification, which isn't that difficult to do, to be honest. and that you are a registered food business with your local authority. But you are limited to selling it in county or within 35 miles of your business. Unless you sell enough of it to restaurants inside of your business, then 30% can be sold outside. Otherwise, you can buy it from what we call an approved game handling establishment, and what you'll see on these deer is that there is a meat stamp, okay? That is our meat stamp, that's what we get from the FSA, so we are an approved game handling establishment, although we don't buy deer from anybody. So at Deerbox we've recognised that chefs want provenance, they want quality, and they want to know where it is, how long it's been hung for, and what's the methods and processes of getting that deer in. And we really want to promote best practice. And so at the moment we manage just over 30,000 acres. We harvest around about 1,000 deer a year off those 30,000 acres. And then we also work in conjunction with about 5 other deer managers that themselves look after another 20,000 acres. And they all conform to the same standards that we do. And we're, as a business, are growing. We launched last year. As I said, last year it's come off the back of one of Mike's older businesses, Robinson Wild Foods. We've developed it, we've taken it forward, and we're now growing. And we're hoping that by the end of this coming season that we will have processed 2,000 to 2,500 deer through our new establishment, which is opening in the next 6 weeks at Ramsbury near Swindon. And as I say, really what we're trying to do is promote the story. I've left a card about what we do, and actually it doesn't have to be about buying it from us. What we're saying is share the story. The story that we've got in there is the same story for everybody. We've got an amazing wild resource out there that needs to be harvested. It has to be harvested. The damage that wild deer are doing to the ecology is significant because they browse all the hedgerows out, so that all of your little birds that live in hedgerows, they've got nowhere to nest. Yeah, they're damaging crops, they're damaging woodland, they're stopping woodland regeneration. So their effect now is significant, even to the point that Mr. Packham has turned round and said that these deer need to be more than halved in terms of their numbers. Yeah, they eat your roses, yeah, no, they do all of that as well. But that, I mean, that's the small bit, but yeah, I mean, these guys, and where we've got herds of fallow deer, they will group up into groups of over 100. I mean, Mike's got a video on his phone of 400 fallow deer in one field. Now, you imagine that these guys are eating approximately, I think it's about 5 kilos of green matter a day, yeah, each, yeah? The damage is massive, yeah? They eat more, because they're an active animal, they eat more than sheep per body weight, okay? So they have to be culled. So let's use them. Let's encourage people to use them. Let's get away from the traditional cookery of venison stews and red wine and all of those things, of rich dishes. Let's show people that this meat can be used all year round. It can be used in salads. It can be used, as you just said. What else would you use it for, John?
So Scotch eggs, we do little carpaccios out of it. We take the loins. We sear them, we roll them in a juniper sort of salt and rosemary, thyme and that, and then we smoke it. Slice it really thinly, and just do a salad like that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, some pickled cauliflower, bits and pieces, and bit of leaves, you know. Yeah, there's just possibilities and possibilities, you know. Yeah. Before I started working for Mike, I'd only ever really used venison in the autumn, just because that's what we did, you know what I mean? That's what the chef, that's what you taught, and that's what you thought you did, you know what I mean? So it's very different when I started using it all year round. But no, I'm all for it, And like you know, it's our biggest seller. You know, say we probably do 400 people a week come through the doors and eat. Oh, there's 400 people, we do 1,900 people every, you know. So,
fantastic. Wonderful. Right, here we go. So we've just butchered this up just to show you how it all can be seamed out. So these are all our muscles. As I said, there's the silver side, part of the top rump, there's the other part of the top rump, there's one of the knuckles. Right, sorry, beg your pardon, that's the chump, salmon, and then the 2 parts off the half round or the knuckle. And that can all be, as you said, used as steaks. You could do it as mini roasts.
Yeah.
It's so versatile. One of our family favourites in the summer is actually pan fry that off with a bit of rosemary and garlic, leave it to rest, and make a tagliata and serve it with parmesan and rocket. I absolutely love it. It's beautiful.
So we've got a big bowl of trim there, you know, but we go through that, not right now, but I make sauce at the restaurant, so sauce trim we made out of that. Any better mince or better looking, we're minced down, and then use that obviously as mince for Scotch eggs or rissoles, like I said. And then you've got all the bone, and the bone's for stock. You know, we go through gravy like you believe, and you know, it all gets used, all gets utilised.
And also you do, not known so much with the fallow deer, but with the roe deer, you do a lovely shoulder dish, don't you? And you could do it with the fallow, it's just that they're a bit big.
We've done it with fallow, you know, this wouldn't be too bad, but we could do it with, you know, this, I could do this, and I've done this. This is a shoulder for 3 or 4 people. And what we do, just very simple at the restaurant, we just cut the shank off, and then this piece here, we put it in brine for about 6-7 hours. Then we slow cook it overnight. In the morning, we take it out, take the H-bone out, wrap it, cling film, make a decent shape out of it. And then we cover it in herb butter and then wrap it in thin streaky bacon. And we've got a wood oven at the restaurant and we bake it in there, the bacon goes crispy, put its apple glaze on there, and we sell loads of them. We normally do a roe shoulders, you're right, and that's a sharing for 2 that we do at the restaurant.
That's fine. So I mean, every single bit can be used.
Oh yeah.
Even the shanks, we've actually started cutting these differently and serving them and doing them as ossobuco cut, and it's been really well welcomed. People have loved it. What John's now going to do is we've got some tasters for everybody. For those that haven't tasted this, we thought, what an opportunity. So while John's just getting that ready, I'm also just going to talk about another project that we're working with, which is the Country Food Trust. The Country Food Trust was set up essentially to utilise a lot of the game meat that's shot during the season, and originally it started with pheasants. But they've moved on very much and are particularly now interested in venison. And what we've done, and what many game dealers or game processors are looking at doing, is working in hand with the Country Food Trust. They produce ready meals which are essentially can be stored outside of a fridge, and so they're given to families with children that aren't getting fed properly, homeless shelters, all sorts of things. And essentially these packets, which are they do I think a pheasant casserole, they do a venison bolognese, they can be stored outside of a fridge and just used. And in the last 2 years, they've done over 10 million meals, and they've got a huge amount of support from various organisations and from government funding. And what they've also done is looked at the situation that we've now got with venison, because ultimately there is a lot of trim, and as a producer of venison, we do have restaurants that aren't necessarily big enough to take whole carcasses. Or certain restaurants that just don't want whole carcasses, they just want lots of saddles. And so what we've come up with is an idea of actually, as a business, we are donating 10% of our venison weight to the Country Food Trust every year in mince. So basically what we're doing is we're setting aside 10% of our weight, it's being minced, we're generally using the trim, it's being bagged up, and our specific mince is going to the Felix project, which is actually a project for chefs in London. And what the Country Food Trust are asking for is they're asking for restaurants to really think about where they're sourcing their venison from, and if possible be diligent and find game dealers and game establishments that are supporting this venture, because in you then buying venison from them, you're actually helping to feed people as well. In addition to that, and there will be a letter going out to chefs from Mike Robinson, there's a universal letter being written at the moment that should be sent out imminently, is that if you feel passionately enough about this venture with the Country Food Trust, that they're asking that you might consider putting a £1 meal levy on your game meal and then donating that pound directly to them. Because ultimately the meat that we donate is not enough for what they need, and they are buying game meat and venison from sources where they can get it. It has to be shot with lead-free, by the way, because we're feeding children, and all of our deer are harvested with lead-free ammunition. That's something that we've done for a couple of years now, and something that all our hunters are promoted to use. But it does mean that that if you are prepared to support this and go that little bit further, it will actually then give them some surplus monies to be actually able to buy more meat in, which will then in turn help more people. How are you getting on, John?
Love it.
Yeah, all coming together,
Yeah,
right?
all coming together, yeah.
And just talk to me what you've done here then.
So literally, I've cooked all that right here. So I just cut the bigger pieces up. You know what I mean? And that's really it.
And what have you done? You just fried it off?
A nice little pan. For me, you don't want to give it too much of a sear. You know, venison especially, there's no fat, and it can't go dry on the outside. You get a nasty grey ring around it. You know. But we had this marinating some oil overnight, some thyme, some garlic, some juniper, and that's black peppercorns. And so, like in a pan, nothing not too hot, but a nice colour. And then I'll just finish it with some fresh thyme, garlic, some butter, and gave it some time in the oven. Gave it a nice rest. You know, that's very important with all meat. But it rests up lovely. This the venison does.
Yeah. And so now you're just slicing it and serving it.
Slicing it and serving it. I've got a little smoked mushroom ketchup. The dish we had recently on the menu was venison with a little petit pois de français, for want of a better word. We'd make a faggot, that's another thing you can make. We'd make a faggot out of all the trimmings. We put some venison heart, some venison liver into it. Again, some pork shoulder, I put some lardo there, some herbs, some prunes through it. The fruit works really nicely with it. And that dish was, literally a nice 160 gram parve, 35 gram faggot, sitting on some beautiful mashed potato, petit pois de français, and this smoked mushroom ketchup. And that sort of just brings you the acidity you want, and cuts through the richness of it. And I haven't got the rest of the dish, but I've got this smoked mushroom ketchup with this, so that did the job.
So everybody's fortunate to have a try. And it looks like, well, the number of people, they're all going to get a good piece each as well.
Oh, fuck, it's plenty. Oh, top man. I love it.
While John's finishing up, are there any questions from anybody? No?
So they taste different to each deer species?
Yes, they do. Yeah. We actually we had 5 different deer species going through our larders in the spring. Yeah, muntjac, fantastic. So we had the 5 of the species through, and we actually managed to get hold of some red deer as well. And Mike did a exercise with one of the writers at the Telegraph, and they went down to Mike's other restaurant at the Elder, and they cooked them off, and there was actually a surprising difference, not only in flavour of them, but also just fat content. They are very different, and that really comes back to what we're saying. There is I wouldn't say it's negative, but a lot of people are put off by venison because it's perceived as being strong, it's being perceived as being gamey. And do you want me to serve that, mate?
No, you have to walk around, don't you?
I'm going to have to walk around. Have we got any little picks or forks for anybody to grab something, or is it just going to be fingers?
Fingers, mate.
Fingers. All right, no problems at all. Right, I'm going to put this down. So yeah, no, there is a big difference in the flavour, and as I said, a lot of perception has come from red deer that are strong and that were shot in the rut and potentially not hung as well as they should have been. And that's filtered through, and we want to break that mould. We want to show people how fantastic this meat is. Right, I'm going to get going. I'm going to put this down. It is fingers, everybody. And John, just put a little bit on the top, or
Yeah, we'll dip it in there, ain't it? It's easier.
yeah, cool. Right, let's start here. Do you want to have a try? Do you want to have a dip? That's it, you know what to do.
I am vegetarian, but I try it.
You're vegetarian? I've got
just
vegans buying
joking.
from us.
Joking.
No, I'm not. You guys know what it tastes like. Oh look, we got some picks. Well done.
Good?
Okay, so we have a steak. So I go to so I'll be we share bread, Yeah, there's no development there. So like, is it all wild deer that you moved on to? No, I was just saying, we've got an estate up north, so I go snorkeling every year, so we shift on the reds and seekers. It's quite interesting to
Gorgeous mate.
Can you just ask John?
Oh, I think they're definitely.
Yeah?
Yeah, they're.
Okay.
do you think it's going to say anything else?
What? You're right. Sorry.
All right, happy?
Gorgeous meat. It's gorgeous meat.
Yeah, it's great. So, any more questions, or we're going to wrap up? I'd like to thank everybody very much for coming and listening. Thank you, John, for your excellent cooking and butchery.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you.